Each day, more of his body was covered in lava, and no one could understand what was happening. Young lovers Ig and Maren spend their time in the forest. Together since their teenage years, they are madly in love. But this idyll exists only in a dream. Ig wakes up on the floor of his room, nursing a brutal hangover. His life has been shattered ever since Maren was brutally murdered. The court couldn't find enough evidence to convict him, but nearly everyone in town believes he's guilty. His house is surrounded by angry townspeople, while relentless journalists constantly try to extract comments, or even a confession, from him. Ig often hides at his parents' home, hoping to find some peace. But even there, he finds no understanding. His parents helped get him out of jail, yet they still suspect him. His mother struggles to communicate with him, and his father urges him to admit to a crime he didn't commit. Only his older brother, Terry, believes in his innocence and is always ready to help. Another ally is Lee, his best friend and lawyer, who managed to secure his release. One morning, Lee delivers devastating news. The lab that had been studying Maren's body burned down. All samples and crucial evidence are gone. On top of that, the police received testimony from an anonymous witness claiming they saw Ig dragging Maren to a car that fateful night. Now it's even harder for Ig to prove his innocence. That same day, he goes to the treehouse where Maren's body was found. Hiding inside, he drinks to numb the pain. Meanwhile, Maren's father, Dale, arrives at the scene with her friends to pay their respects. Dale blames Ig for his daughter's death and demands he confess to the police. This drives Ig into a blind rage. After everyone leaves, Ig erupts in fury. He smashes the memorial, destroys religious symbols, even urinates on the spot. His anger isn't just at the people who hate him, it's at God, for letting Maren leave this world so soon. Amid this chaos, Glenna appears, his childhood friend. She works at a local bar and has always loved him, though Ig never returned her feelings while Maren was around. Trying to calm him, Glenna invites him home. They spend the night together. In the morning, Ig wakes up in bed with Glenna. Struggling with a brutal hangover, he notices something terrifying. Horns are starting to grow from his forehead. Shaken, Ig asks Glenna if she can see the horns. She says yes, and then starts acting very strangely. She laughs hysterically and greedily devours a box of donuts. She confesses that she feels worthless, that men only pay attention to her when they're drunk, which is true. A sober Ig would never have noticed her. Glenna also admits that she desperately wants to gain weight, hoping someone will finally take notice of her. Convinced that he's been cursed, Ig decides to see a doctor. The waiting room is chaos. A little girl screams and throws toys, while her mother does nothing. Then the woman turns to Ig and starts unloading her frustrations. She wants to punish her daughter, divorce her husband, and run away with her golf instructor. The receptionist finally asks the woman to take her child outside, saying no one else can tolerate the screaming. But the girl turns to Ig and declares she hates her mother and wants to burn her. In the doctor's office, the strangeness continues. The nurse casually mentions that her boyfriend is cheating on her. Ig begins to realize that everyone around him is spilling their secrets, as if under a spell. The doctor notices Ig's horns but pays them no mind. Instead, he confesses that he wants to sleep with his daughter's friend and even offers Ig some illegal substances. Disgusted by the doctor's revelations, Ig simply asks to have the horns removed. The doctor agrees, saying they'll need to be sawed off. Under anesthesia, Ig drifts into a vivid dream. He remembers the first time he saw Maren, in a church. Their eyes met during the service. When she left, Ig found a necklace she had dropped on a pew. At the time, he and his friends loved playing with fireworks. One day at the beach, he decided to slide down a hill in a shopping cart for one last firework. Glenna begged him not to, but he ignored her, and ended up crashing into a lake, almost drowning. Luckily, Lee jumped into the water and saved him just in time. That same day, Lee fixed the broken necklace and wanted to give it back to Maren. But Ig offered him a firecracker in exchange for letting him return the necklace himself. He really wanted to impress Maren. Ig returned the necklace to the girl, keeping Lee's help a secret. They quickly started talking, and Maren shared that her mother had passed away from cancer last year, after which she and her father moved to the city. Suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by Ig's friends with terrible news. The firecracker exploded in Lee's hands, seriously injuring his wrist. Despite everything, he wasn't mad at Ig and stayed friends with him. As Ig and Maren grew closer, he showed her a secluded cabin in the woods, which quickly became their favorite place. In the present, Ig wakes up and feels his horns growing even larger, one of them now impaled by a huge knife. He calls a doctor, only to be disgusted as he watches the man having sex with a nurse right in front of him. Realizing that science won't help, Ig turns to the local priest. At the sight of his horns, the priest recoils and says Ig is cursed. The priest believes it's a punishment from God for what Ig did to Maren and suggests he end his life. Desperate for answers, Ig visits Lee and notices something strange. Lee can't see the horns. Ig begins to suspect that perhaps only bad people are affected by them, while the good remain untouched. Later, Ig goes home to his parents hoping for comfort, but his mother suddenly admits she's tired of hearing about his problems and wants him to leave for good. Devastated, Ig tries to walk away but runs into his father. His father stops him and confesses that he hates him for what happened to Maren. He also admits that he set fire to the lab where Marin's body was being studied. He did it to protect Ig, though he still blames him. Shaken by his parents' brutal confessions, Ig makes a surprising decision. He plans to use his powers to uncover the truth about who took Marin's life. Ig gets in his car and drives straight to the local pub, hoping to find clues. But the reporters won't leave him alone. They shove microphones in his face, desperate for a sensational story. Suddenly, Ig tells them to fight each other, promising that the winner will get an exclusive interview. The plan actually works, and the reporters start brawling violently. Meanwhile, Ig heads into the pub, hoping to track down the anonymous witness who gave false testimony to the police. The bartender threatens to kick Ig out, but as soon as he starts talking to him, the man suddenly admits that he's planning to burn down his own bar for insurance money. Ig presses the other patrons for information, and one by one, they begin confessing their darkest secrets. Finally, he gets the answer he's looking for. The witness is a waitress who served Ig and Marin that night. She claims she saw a guy dragging Marin into a car. Meanwhile, the bartender actually sets his bar on fire. As Ig steps out of the burning pub, the reporters are still fighting outside, oblivious to the chaos around them. In his car, Ig opens the glove compartment to grab a cigarette and finds a wedding ring he had planned to give Marin the night she died. We're pulled back into Ig's memories. Excited, he had told Lee and Terry that he wanted to propose to Marin at a diner and invited them to join later to celebrate. But instead of a romantic evening, it turned into a nightmare. Marin arrived at the diner upset and suddenly announced she was moving to Los Angeles. Ig, confused, said he wanted to start a new life too, but she insisted on breaking up. Marin told him they should try dating other people to see if they really loved each other. Ig said he didn't need anyone else, but Marin disagreed. At that moment, the waitress tried to take their order, but seeing the tension, she stepped back. Ig began to suspect Marin was already in love with someone else, which made him furious. Marin left silently, and an angry Ig ran after her. He ignored his brother, who had already arrived for the celebration, got into his car, and drove aimlessly until he found a quiet place to stop. The next morning, police woke him up. His old friend Eric, now a cop, asked when he last saw Marin. That's when Ig realized something was wrong. He blamed himself, thinking something had happened to her. This marked the beginning of his nightmare. He became the prime suspect in Marin's death. In the present, Ig is determined to expose the liar who set him up. He returns to the diner where they had their fight. He finds the waitress, Veronica, and demands to know why she lied to the police, claiming she saw him dragging Marin into a car. Surprisingly, she smirks and admits she made it all up to get attention. She was tired of being invisible and thought the media would finally notice her if she interfered in a high-profile case. Infuriated, Ig storms out and heads to a jazz bar where his brother Terry is performing. Glenna is there too, and she confesses her love to him, but Ig can't return her feelings. After the performance, he pulls Terry aside and tells him he knows the identity of the false witness. He suggests that Terry go to the police and back up his version of events. After all, Terry had been at the diner and saw Ig leave alone. But then Terry drops a bombshell. He admits that after Ig left, he ran into Marin and offered her a ride home. Hearing this, Ig flies into a rage and attacks his brother. Under the influence of his horns, Terry finally breaks down and tells the whole story. He says Marin agreed to the ride but asked him to stop along the way so she could get out. She wanted to go to the treehouse, and Terry pulled over. Drunk and drowsy, he waited in the car and eventually fell asleep at the wheel. When he woke up in the morning, there was a large rock on the passenger seat, covered in red stains. In a panic, he rushed into the forest searching for Marin and soon found her lifeless body under a tree. Fearing accusations, Terry decided to cover his tracks. He wrapped a rock in a shirt, threw it into the lake, and walked away. He never told anyone what he had seen that day, letting all the guilt fall on his brother. After a confession, the police somehow appear and arrest Ig. The next morning, Lee shows up again, using his connections to get his friend released. While talking to Lee, Ig notices something around his neck, a cross that belonged to Marin. He asks where Lee got it, and Lee completely freezes. At first, he tries to dodge the question, then claims that Marin gave it to him. Hearing this, Ig's whole world collapses. He realizes that Lee was the man Marin had been involved with. That's why she broke up with him. Ig then drives to Marin's father, Dale's house, hoping to find answers and some comfort. When Dale opens the door, Ig asks if Marin ever mentioned having feelings for anyone else. The question sends Dale into a rage. He immediately points a shotgun at Ig and orders him to leave. Like everyone else in the town, he still holds Ig responsible for his daughter's death and can't bring himself to listen. But despite the anger and grief boiling inside him, Dale doesn't pull the trigger. His heart is so pure that he doesn't even notice the horns growing from Ig's forehead. That night, Ig finds shelter in an abandoned building, trying desperately to rid himself of the horns. He bangs his head against a concrete wall, but nothing changes. Stepping back, he realizes the building is crawling with snakes, slithering toward him from every direction. Terrified, Ig grabs a piece of wood to defend himself, but the snakes don't attack. One even climbs onto his arm and coils around his neck, as if it recognizes him. At that moment, Ig feels a change deep within. Pain, betrayal, and grief ignite a desire for revenge against those who have wronged him. His first target is Veronica, the waitress who lied to the police, claiming she saw him dragging Marin to the car. That night, after closing the diner, she gets into her car, unaware it's already filled with snakes. Suddenly, they strike, biting her face and hands. Veronica manages to crawl out, screaming in pain, while Ig watches silently. Next, Ig visits his brother's house and finds him using drugs. Terry admits he hasn't been able to stay sober since that night, but Ig doesn't care. Full of vengeful fury, he silently uses the power of his horns to force Terry to ingest all the drugs in front of him. He has no intention of killing him, he just wants him to feel the helplessness Maren must have felt in her final moments. As the toxins take effect, Terry is plunged into horrifying hallucinations. Later, Ig meets with Lee and calmly asks how long he and Maren had been involved. Lee admits they had been together for a few months but insists he always knew Ig was innocent. He says he would never have helped Ig get out of jail if he thought otherwise. For a moment, Ig hesitates. Part of him wants to believe his best friend, but something inside pushes him to act. Without warning, Ig rips the cross from Lee's neck. The moment the necklace disappears, Lee sees the horns for the first time. It turns out he hadn't noticed them before, not because he was a good person, but because the cross had shielded him. With that protection gone, Lee is overwhelmed by Ig's power and begins to speak. He confesses that he had always loved Maren and had hated Ig for years for being the one she chose. He admits he could never come to terms with it, even as children, and even regretted saving Ig's life at the lake. Lee says that if Ig had drowned that day, everything might have turned out differently. Enraged, Ig lunges at him with the pitchfork, then grabs Lee by the neck and plunges into his memories. Shortly before the diner incident, Maren had called Lee and told him they needed to talk. She had recently learned something about herself and decided it would prevent her from staying with Ig. Maren asked Lee to meet her at the diner that night for support. He agreed, but when he saw her get into Terry's car, suspicion gnawed at him. He followed them at a distance, watching as Maren went alone into the forest. Lee approached her and offered to take her home, but she refused, saying she needed time to think. Maren was clearly shaken by her breakup with Ig. Lee kissed her, convinced she had finally chosen him. But when she pushed him away and admitted she still loved Ig, Lee lost control. He attacked her, knocking her to the ground and taking over with his power. Panic surged through him. He grabbed a stone and delivered the final blow, shattering her skull. Realizing what he had done, he grabbed her cross, wiped his hands, and slipped a stone into Terry's car. In the present, Ig watches all of this, trembling with rage. While he's momentarily distracted, Lee grabs a chain and lashes Ig across the back. Then he shoves him into the car, douses it with gasoline, and sets it on fire. Flames engulf the vehicle, and Ig slams on the gas. The car plunges into the lake, and as it sinks, Lee calls the police, claiming that Ig confessed to everything and took his own life. Just when it seems like the story is over, the unthinkable happens. Ig rises from the lake, disfigured, burned, but alive. He makes his way to Dale's house once more. The man is shocked by his appearance, but when Ig tells him everything, Dale finally believes that Ig wasn't responsible for his daughter's death. As a gesture of trust, Dale hands Ig the key Maren had left him. In return, Ig offers him the cross, but Dale insists he keep it, believing that Maren would have wanted him too. The moment Ig puts on the necklace, his body heals, and the horns vanish along with the burns. With the key in hand, Ig returns to the treehouse where he and Maren shared their happiest moments. He opens the secret compartment known only to them and finds a small box inside. It contains personal belongings, photographs, and a letter written in Morse code, their secret language from childhood. As Ig reads it, his heart shatters. He learns that Maren had been diagnosed with a hereditary cancer. She never stopped loving him but had pushed him away, afraid he would sacrifice his future for her. After this revelation, Ig visits his brother in the hospital and tells him that Lee took Maren's life. Shocked, Terry offers to help, but Ig knows his brother isn't strong enough yet. He tells him to rest and promises he'll handle it himself. Ig confronts Lee, who remembers nothing because he was last under the influence of the horns. Ig takes advantage of this and invites him for a walk. They arrive at the site of the tragedy, and Lee realizes he's walked into a trap. He tries to lie, denying his guilt, but Ig already knows the truth. Still, he offers Lee one last chance to surrender. Suddenly, Eric and Terry emerge from the trees. The police officer points his rifle and demands Lee surrender. He now knows Ig was set up. At first, Lee complies, but then he snatches the weapon from Eric. Terry tries to stop him, but Lee shoots him in the leg. Ig lunges at him with a pitchfork but ends up pointing the rifle at Eric, and Lee blows his head off. Lee continues threatening Ig and Terry with the gun, and finally, Ig makes a bold decision. He rips the cross from his neck, and wings erupt behind him. He soars into the sky, but suddenly the flames engulf him, and the horns burst out of his skull once again. Ig takes on the form of the devil himself. Shocked, Lee opens fire on him, but it's already not enough. Desperate, Lee falls to his knees, begging for forgiveness. But it's another trick. Suddenly, he grabs a pitchfork and plunges it into Ig's stomach. Despite the severe wound, Ig lifts Lee and drives his massive horns through Lee's chest. Then he throws him to the ground and watches as snakes swarm him. They coil tightly around Lee's limbs, pinning him in place. One snake pierces his body, then slides into his throat, and Lee writhes in violent convulsions. When the chaos finally subsides, Ig collapses from his injuries. Harry rushes to help, but it's too late. Ig's body slowly turns to ash. The pain finally fades, and now he can be reunited with Marin in the afterlife. Would you want the power to make everyone around you confess all their secrets? And do you think revenge can truly bring someone peace and closure? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.